Personal foul. Clipping. Personal foul. Personal foul. Personal foul. Clipping.
9 to noon.
Good stuff.
Double doink.
59th time's the charm. From a season worse than Ebola to winning in NOLA.
There it is. There it is. You have the life changer at your fingertips.
The life changer of
Whoop 'em baby style.
Oh, well, I mean,
yeah. The plan.
Let's get some run out of this, right?
Well, the plan was to play it back in the final hour, which we'll do. Then during the conversation with HOF and PFT, we after that, I hadn't looked at my phone in about 35 minutes. I'd say of the 16 text messages I received during that time, 9 of them were, I missed Whoop 'em Van Ginkel style. I caught the end of Whoop 'em Van Ginkel style. Can you play it again? Pretty, please. I'm like, yeah, we're going to play it in the final hour. I got a meeting. All right, 3-2.
The gink is on fire.
It's Van Ginkel style. Van Ginkel style.
Career, and he read Daniel Jones like a book. They blitz Roger, and they pay for it. Picked off by Van Ginkel, near side to the 50, on the sideline 40, and it's loose. Touchdown!
43, though, putting on a show they didn't know. Now they know. Ruining their flow. A sack or bad throw. Every play. Every day. Driving quarterbacks absolutely insane. It's Van Ginkel style. Van Ginkel style.
Here's Van Ginkel.
It's Van Ginkel style.
Andrew Van Ginkel.
Van Ginkel style.
Andrew Van Ginkel.
It's Van Ginkel style.
Andrew Van Ginkel.
It's Van Ginkel style.
Andrew Van Ginkel.
It's Van Ginkel style.
Yeah, we like that, as hopefully the Rams get whooped Van Ginkel style. If the Los Angeles pass rush is that of ferocity, how will the head coach of the Minnesota Vikings handle it? Now, this emerged deep stretch of the Talker Tuesday, 9 to noon, at the Twin Cities Orthopedics Performance Center, specifically after the elongated chat we had with Vikings head coach Whoop 'em KOC style. And Nordo sniffed out the inference yesterday during that 30 with the coach that about defenders leaking through, playing into Sam's regression at the Motor City Davy. Because Kevin has referenced it multiple times, either with 9 to noon or via press conferences, so ain't nobody breaking news here, but it just triggered us / yours truly to think about a potential KO conflict coming up on Monday night. So the question would be, and you know, I mean, it's how am I going to put this? All right, 3-2.
This rule is BS.
I watched back all of the offensive plays yesterday, and I had watched some of them the day before because I just wanted to get a feel for what Kevin was talking about and when. And, I mean, obviously he and they know 1,000 times more about it than we'll ever know, and they look at it critically in a way that I or we don't. I felt there was a fair amount of time, with all due respect, on several of the throws that were missed, sailed, missed, thrown too hard, off target. Okay. And I understand what he's saying, but to a man, I still feel that that some of those touchdowns absolutely should have been closed on. So, maybe part of the KO conflict is, inflating certain things to take some heat off somebody, or there are facets of it that would not have led to touchdowns that I just missed. And that's quite possible too. But what if it's a problem Monday night? Pass rush from the middle. Does the KO conflict would be, does he play CJ Ham and or Josh Oliver more than they're playing of late? Now, that means, it could mean Hawkinson and Naylor mostly would have to sit on the side. Jalen's given you 6 touchdowns. TJ he's a threat that sometimes requires multiple players. And some may view an approach like this, if indeed it is a KO conflict, as having some submission to it. Coaches ain't big on the submission card. Just remember that. But a couple of ways to potentially fix it, perchance things do become leaky, and we're looking to avoid a KO conflict. First, with all due respect, left guard Blake Brandel may have had his worst game of the season Sunday night. I had somebody after the game, and then somebody who watched the game tell me Monday that Brandel had his problems. So I went to watch it back, and Blake has been very helpful for many, many reasons for this offense this season. It might have been his worst game of the season. Pass protection and run blocking. All right. So to avoid a KO conflict, the expectation is that will be better. Plus, Sam, if that and then the middle part of this equation, if that's not completely ready, I'm not going to say prepared, because the preparation is 10 of 10. But then the lights get bright, and then the whistles sound, and the fans start touching. Oh, wait, that's Ford Field. The fans get loud, and they're supporting their squad and everything. Well, then that's, this moments like that are not for everybody. And I'm not calling out Blake Brandel. I'm just saying that high leverage situations are different than games at Tennessee. That's regular season games at Tennessee. Sam then would feel the middle thrust. And that's always the best way to foil a quarterback, with a middle thrust or surge or penetration. That's where keeping a back or CJ Ham in the game, but out of pass routes, becomes the KO conflict. Pulling a guy from the arsenal of catching plays. So when it comes to what we hit on very, very, very late in the 9 to noon show yesterday before we left,
He gone!
the KO conflict has tentacles. And some of it involves the pass rush. Some of it involves the quarterback and his feet and jitters or lack thereof. Jefferson, when to try, when not to try. And all of this comes up now and didn't last week, because they're truly in cliched fashion, but it's fact. There is no tomorrow if you lose on Monday. I've said this a few times now, but like with a lot of the radio interviews I did last week, or some people with whom I was chatting, mostly national radio or things like that. They'll be like, you've called games for quite some time. Where does this rank the Lions game with all the games you've called? And then finally, I was just like, well, it's behind every playoff game and every win and in I've had the privilege to call over X amount of years, because there is a tomorrow. So while appreciating the magnification and opportunity in front of both of those teams Sunday night, this one's different, because it's over if it doesn't go the right way. If guys are missed, if tackles are missed, if passes sail, if passes are dropped, and they're at key times and the adversary capitalizes, it's over.
Yeah.
It wasn't over after Sunday. So I'm like, I don't know, man, maybe top 15, top 20. It's a super cool game and stuff, but there is a tomorrow. And the KO conflict, something that I've been thinking about, the potential of a KO conflict. Now, if they protect, like they have a majority of this year, including in the Green Bay game, which may have been the best pass protection Sam Darnold received the entire season, the KO conflict is a non-starter. But speaking of conflict, or speaking of the Vikings offense, and I referenced this with HOF Fran Tarkenton. It's I'm curious to see what Darnold does when Jefferson is singled outside the numbers and Darnold starts to get himself in a little bit of trouble. Or, excuse me, all right, 3-2. And Darnold starts to get in trouble either caused by him or others around him in the ultimate team game. Because Justin Jefferson has to be, and absolutely is, a bailout 50-50 guy. I mean, Hawkinson got a fair amount of those Sunday. And this week, I don't know. I mean, I'd tell Justin to be on alert for that 50-50 when Sam is pressured, and preferably close to the sideline, preferably outside the numbers between the sideline. You know, it's a big-time game. Justin is a big-time player, gifted with the bailout gene. If the Vikings go down, let's go down making sure Justin Jefferson responsibly is given every possible chance to go HOF on this game. And that doesn't mean forcing something to him back center of the end zone where, you know, despite Amik Robertson, the Louisiana Tech kid, playing the best football game I've ever seen him play in his life, watching it back, it really helped me gain an appreciation for, the return of Alex Anzalone. Wow, what a menace. What an absolute menace he was. And Amik Robertson has never played better. And I can't say never because I haven't watched the totality of, say, you know, all of their games since Carlton Davis went down. If Amik Robertson has ever played a better football game in his life, I would have to have it shown to me. 21 was terrific for the Detroit Lions. But he was also terrific for the Minnesota Vikings because Sam went Jacksonville on it, tried to force one to Justin, back center of the end zone. It was inaccurate, and Amik Robertson should have had an interception, and he dropped it. But if there are opportunities, and you know Justin is single because you caught a glimpse, and they're bearing down on you, I'm a fan, specifically if it's outside the numbers, close to the sideline, because now we eliminate the potential for players coming from all angles, to let Justin be the bailout guy on those situations. And if you throw a 50-50 to Justin and it doesn't work, all right, we got beat on a 50-50 being thrown to a player who probably or has a great chance to go to the Hall of Fame. I'm not mad at that. It's not Jacksonville-esque. That was blatant forcing. This is the bailout part of the equation, which may be required on Monday night. Now, well, we're going to hit on the defense tomorrow. But first and foremost, you're watching this thing back from the Motor City Davy. Kyron Williams, the running back for the Rams, he doesn't run like Jahmyr Gibbs. All right, he's not as fast. He doesn't. Kyron is a one-speed, one-gear bowling ball with a nice little slide and a decent little jump cut. Jahmyr Gibbs is entering super freak territory. I mean, when he slow rolls that thing and then he puts the pedal to the metal, if you're not ready for it, then he runs like the wind. Now, Cam Bynum really had a rough night judging angles on Jahmyr Gibbs as the running back was gaining speed. All right? So tackling has to be on point Monday night because it's all short and run after catch these days. I mean, week 8 with the Rams, it was all short and run after catch. And then Stafford started to get a little claustrophobic and he got pissed off at the blitzing and how things were being taken away from a short game standpoint. So late third quarter, early fourth quarter, on second down, first or second down, they had just gotten a first down. He went back on a 7-step drop and just heaved the ball deep left. And there really was nobody in the vicinity. I think DeMarcus Robinson was running for it, but there was no chance he had to catch it. And the receiver was doubled. But what did Stafford do? He did what a lot of quarterbacks the Vikings have faced this year have not done. He made discretion the better part of valor. He chucked one up deep, just so you know, I ain't afraid to do this. So if you keep doing this, it's going to take us 5 seconds to figure out how to get around it deep. And I need you guys to back off a little bit. And they had to back off a little bit. And then all of a sudden it got wonky and they lost to Marcus Robinson a couple of times. So the tackling in this game with the short run after catch stuff is so very important. Nacho Libre joins tomorrow at 10 to help us through the game. And when we return, the Vox of all Voxes, ever to Vox, amplifies 9 to noon. Alan Roach is the Vox of all Voxes, ever to Vox. He's a Slayton, Minnesota native, resides in just outside Red Rocks in a beautiful Colorado these days. And when it comes to the Vox of all Voxes, ever to Vox, follow him via the tweet machine, as the 9 to noon does, at Mile High Roach. And here is Alan. Alan, good morning. Is there any chance you fly into the Southland and take in the game from the Vox box? Vox?
I was actually just discussing that with my wife yesterday. It's a lot easier to get to L.A. from here. They haven't jacked up the airline prices from Denver.
Really?
But then I hear you talk about the fires and maybe the game being moved. That's kind of a lot to think about.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything from the inside about that potential. It's just, I have family and friends who live in Southern California, and I knew about the fires, and I remember the Santa Ana winds when I went to high school and junior college there. They actually used to be called the Santana winds, the devil's winds. But they blow from the south, like Santa Ana, California, and they're vicious. I mean, they're up to like 100 miles per hour now when the fire is taking place. And I started thinking, wow, Pacific Palisades is, when they say that they can see flames from the fire at Venice Beach is, even with the bad traffic, 12 minutes to SoFi. So then I started, and Pacific Palisades, as the crow flies, is a 30-minute drive. It's about 14 miles. And so I started thinking about it a little bit, and I brought it up with Florio, and I'll see if I can uncover more when I'm at the facility today. But it's scary. It's very sad stuff, what they're going through right now, right?
Yeah, thoughts, wishes, prayers for everybody who lives in that area and is probably being affected a whole lot more than what football fans will be.
Now, the Vox of all Voxes, ever to Vox, contacted yours truly yesterday with an epiphany from the Gridiron Gospel. And he told me the first line, and I'm like, stop. This is fantastic. I don't want to know the rest. I want everybody to be apprised on the radio, and here we are. So please give it to us.
Epiphany is a great word, a great lead-in. Thanks, B.A.
No problem.
First, you got to know where I sit. You can't know where I stand until you know where I sit. Rufus Miles said that. Mm-hmm. It's called Miles' Law. Where you stand depends upon where you sit. Mm-hmm. There's two places that I sit. I know you'll agree with one of them, or I think you will. The second one might be a little more challenging for you, PA. We'll find out. First place I sit is this. Sam Darnold is no longer the quarterback of 3 to 6 years ago. When he was drafted, he was considered an exceptional, if not generational, talent. Third overall pick, 2018, became the youngest quarterback to start an NFL game in the modern era, but he started it for the New York Jets. That was strikes 1 through 3, maybe strikes 1 through 27, and game over for Sam Darnold. The Jets are the most dysfunctional and have been the most dysfunctional organization in the NFL for maybe 3 decades. Have you ever thought of what would have happened had Aaron Rodgers not sat backstage at Radio City Music Hall for almost the entire first round and had the New York Jets drafted him and thrown him out as their quarterback on day one? A-Rod would probably have stats that are a lot more like Andy Dalton or Geno Smith right now than the brilliant career he's put together.
Fair.
And that's a story for a different day. Sam Darnold's talent was stifled, muted, and buried by the New York Jets because of their organizational dysfunction. 2 head coaches, 3 offensive coordinators. Then Sam gets traded to Carolina with a first-year head coach in Matt Rule coming out of college who is in way over his head. Another 2 offensive coordinators. Matt Rule was fired after barely 2 years. I don't think he'll ever get another shot in the NFL. Sam Darnold's already buried talent, then had a grave marker put on it, and it was dead. So now Sam goes to San Francisco, and that began the turnaround of Sam Darnold because of Kyle Shanahan and that organization. When the Vikings signed Sam Darnold this last spring, I don't remember the quote, but what I took from it listening to KOC talk was that Sam Darnold learned more and grew more as an NFL quarterback in 1 year on the bench in San Francisco than he had in 5 years of playing in the league. So the first place I sit is that Sam Darnold has exceptional talent and skills, and he will not regress back to the Sam Darnold of years ago, especially now after this year of coaching from KOC and Josh McCown. He's not going to go backwards. He will be a quality, high-functioning starting quarterback in this league for years to come, whether that's here in Minnesota or somewhere else. Do you agree with that?
The epiphany was terrific. What's next?
All right. The second place I sit is that Sunday night against the Lions was Sam Darnold's first career playoff game. Mm-hmm. Now, I understand it was not a playoff game in the literal sense. I heard you talk this week and last week about interviews that you had, and you said this was not a playoff game. It wasn't one of the biggest games in your announcing career because it wasn't a playoff game. It wasn't lose and go home. But it was a playoff game in every other sense.
Yes,
Cam
sir.
Bynum said it himself Monday on Dan Barrero's show. He said that he and other players looked at that game as a playoff game because had the Vikings won, they would have advanced to the second round of the NFL playoffs. That's the definition of a first-round playoff game.
Yep, hold on.
Add in the media attention, the bright lights, the hype, the interviews, the talk of the biggest NFL regular season game in history, the Sunday night crew having their set on the sidelines. There were exponentially more aspects of last Sunday night's game that were similar to a playoff game than there were dissimilarities.
Okay.
From where I sit, Sam Darnold played his first playoff game last week in Detroit.
When we chatted,
Can you buy that?
When we chatted on the phone yesterday, you're so crafty. You saved the Cam Bynum bit
Box.
for the radio show today and the whole second round equation.
Box.
It just put me in a major box, which truly did kind of make it a playoff game. So,
Box.
well done. Yes, I do agree.
So that's where I sit. Here's where I stand.
Yep.
Sam Darnold is going to play a lot more football for the Minnesota Vikings in these playoffs. And here's why. History and numbers. If Sam played his first career playoff game last week in Detroit, his numbers were 18 of 41, 44% completion, no touchdowns, no interceptions, a 55 rating. So let's take a look at some other quarterbacks in their first playoff game. Peyton Manning, multiple-time MVP, multiple Super Bowl champion. Peyton Manning's first playoff game, 19 of 42, 45%. No touchdowns, a 62 rating in a loss to Tennessee.
Box.
John Elway, multiple Super Bowl champion, MVP, Hall of Famer, both those guys. John Elway's first playoff game, 10 of 15, 67%, no touchdowns, one pick, 64 rating, a 31-7 loss to Seattle.
Box.
Eli Manning, soon to be Hall of Famer, two-time Super Bowl champion. 10 of 18, 55%, no touchdowns, three picks, a 35 rating in a 23-0 shutout to Carolina.
Go on.
One of the most prolific passers in NFL history, Dan Fouts. Granted, never made it to the Super Bowl. His first playoff game, 25 of 47, 53%, no touchdowns, five picks, a 36 rating in a loss to Houston. Two more for you. Quarterbacks that are in the game today. Josh Allen, his first playoff game, 24 of 46, 52%, no touchdowns, a 69 rating in a loss to Houston. Lamar Jackson, 14 of 29, 48%, one pick, and a 70 rating against the LA Chargers in a loss. What happened to each of those quarterbacks after they played their first playoff game and then moved on to their second playoff game? Now, not every one of those guys led their team the next year to the Super Bowl, but I can tell you that each one of those guys went on to win their next playoff game.
Right.
And to play exponentially better than they did in their last playoff game. And the difference is those guys had to wait. They had, when they lost their first career playoff game, they were done for the year. They went home. They cleaned out their locker. They came back. They went through OTAs. They went through training camp. They went through another full season. And they, granted, garnered more experience, but Sam Darnold's already had that experience, now being in his 7th year. They had to wait for the opportunity to play in their second playoff game. And you could say that after losing their first playoff game, all they could think about was having their chance at a second playoff game. But they had to wait at minimum 1 calendar year, maybe more than that, maybe 2 calendar years to get to their second playoff game. Sam Darnold has to wait 7 days. Sam Darnold is going to look at what he did wrong and look himself in the mirror. And with the coaching of Kevin O'Connell and Josh McCown, Josh Darnold is going to be lights out in his quote-unquote second career playoff game against the LA Rams, and I can't wait to see Sam Darnold play in another playoff game against the Detroit Lions.
There, through the annals of time, Alan Roach, there has been, I don't know, the Gettysburg Address, I Have a Dream, We Shall Fight on the Beaches, Sermon on the Mount, and then what you just shared today. That was beautiful. It was well researched. It was beautiful. It was delivered eloquently, and it was from the heart. But now we got to play the game, and I'm really, really hoping you're right with this, and I'm not going to say you're wrong. But see, like what you just mentioned, and yeah, you sold me on it hard, man. But what I was trying to sell you on yesterday, and I couldn't get you over the hump, I'm going to try to do it again. I think we're talking about second times here. I think it's important O'Connell got rid of some of the weird of contesting his mentor week 8. So maybe that experience helps our squad a bit too.
Box.
I mean, have you gotten over the hump on that one?
Box.
I certainly agree with your stance that playing the Rams one time already, considering the past of Kevin O'Connell and the Rams coaching staff, that yes, it's good to get that first one out of the way.
Yeah. Time for 2 more at Mile High Roach. How badly do you want the games to fall this weekend? How badly, Box, do you want the games to fall the way we have a home game next week and a half, and you can jump back on the microphone at U.S. Bank Stadium?
Obviously, that's the garden spot. If all of the wild card teams can beat all of the division winners, then absolutely playing at home next week against the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, that's be Washington Commanders. Actually, as I'm being told right now, Washington Commanders. But we take our.
Oh, that's right, because the Lions would get the Packers.
Yeah, Lions would get the Packers and dispatch of the Packers.
So you can't draw up a better scenario than that. 3 wild card teams win, 3 division winners lose.
Okay.
The Vikings at home against the Commanders in a game that they'd be favored by probably at least a touchdown.
No, I don't know about that. Maybe 4.5, but you know more about that than me. Well, okay.
No, I think.
Well, Vox, off that on that vein, all right, 3-2. In that sassy vein, with the games this weekend, and you wanting to get back on the microphone at U.S. Bank Stadium to be the Slayton Vox of all Voxes ever to Vox, will you dare utter "Go Pack Go" at any time up to or during the game at Philly?
In your face, Milwaukee!
I will be announcing a PWHL, Professional Women's Hockey League game, the Minnesota Frost and the Montreal Victoire.
Oh, that's sweet. Now, remember...
At the Ball Arena. The game will probably get over about halftime of that Philadelphia Green Bay Packers game. So maybe my sign-off after the PWHL game, Minnesota Frost 4, Montreal Victoire 3. Thank you for joining us today. Go Pack Go!
And there is your dagger!
Now, remember with the Frost, Alan, it's Taylor Hoosey and Grace Zamichael, okay? Just keep that in mind for the weekend, okay, Vox?
She is the poster child, Zumwinkle. Does she have Minnesota ties?
Oh, yeah. And Taylor Heisey, her boyfriend, is a power forward for the Gophers basketball team. Parker Fox does a Wolves fan line with Hootie Hoo and joins 9 to noon every so often. And, Taylor's got some superstar to her. And like you, she's salt of the earth. I appreciate the conversation. Let's text and talk this thing out up to the Monday Night Life Changer, okay?
Sam Darnold has a lot more football to play in these playoffs, B.A.
Boy, you are on your game right now. Thank you, Alan.
Good night.
That's Alan Roach, the voice of U.S. Bank Stadium, the Vox of all Voxes, ever to Vox.
Yeah, I might punch him in the face.
Be right back.
Welcome back. It is 9 to noon, and News du Nord is always brought to you by The Casino at Canterbury Park, canterburypark.com. And I'm absolutely scrambling right now to find the notes because this is a big one here.
What do you got, the 100K bit?
Well, it's the bonus weekend, and it's at Canterbury Park, January 17th through the 21st. You've heard about poker, blackjack, and table games. Well, they're adding an extra $100,000 to their Ultimate Texas Hold'em table game. So the jackpot, an extra $100K, they're just dumping that thing into the kitty. And it's January 17th through the 21st to take advantage of that. And they got a ton of fun stuff, so don't miss out. Go to CanterburyPark.com for details.
Hey, on behalf of the Sampsons and all of Canterbury Park, we thank you very much for the time you put into that each and every News du Nord, specifically Wednesdays and Thursdays. And secondly...
Do you have a key to the money room?
I can get you one.
Because I appreciate the pleasantries and all of that. And really at a base level, I just love all those guys over there. So I'm always going to support them. But if you did have a key to the money room...
Understood. I see those emails you're getting, and it seems the key is coming to you.
And there is your dagger!
But there's Snowcross this weekend. All right,
sweet.
It's very popular and it's very cool. So Snowcross this weekend at Canterbury Park, CanterburyPark.com.
Do you remember when hockey used to do some of the play-by-play and bits for that?
For CBS.
I've been to it twice. Yeah, CBS Sports maybe.
Yeah.
That's a really cool event they put on there.
It's fantastic. And how I knew was, or how I was reminded, is because Smiley is doing like Snowcross prep stuff today at the racetrack, 11 to 7. So I'm like, hey, Snowcross this weekend. Sounds like a heck of a time. I might want to go. CanterburyPark.com.
By prep work, is he going to be at Chips?
I don't know if the Sips will be at Chips.
Okay.
I believe they will on Saturday and Sunday with my son.
Sips at Chips leading to tips.
Not exactly sure what the young man's doing out there today, but we'll head out there after the radio show and say, yell out.
All right. On-air production meeting has been concluded. For the Minnesota Timberwolves, they win last night 104-97 over the Pelicans. They've now won 4 in a row, so we dig that. Or excuse me, the Wild have won 4 in a row. We'll get to them momentarily. The Wolves have won 2 in a row. 104-97. Randall, I think, was better last night, PA. But the story over the last 3, albeit in Detroit, it led to a loss. Anthony Edwards with 32 last night. He now has 23 triples in his last 3, shooting at about 59% from beyond the arc his last 3.
Damn.
He had 7 last night. In terms of the Pelicans, I mean, they're a 7-win team. They've just been destroyed by injury over the course of the 2024 into 25. Zion's pretty good when he actually plays.
Yeah.
And DeJounte Murray is a stud when he actually plays. And the problem for CJ McCollum is he wasn't playing earlier this year, and then he played, and he went 1 of 14 last night. So
wow.
It's pure ugliness for New Orleans right now with the Pelicans. So they're struggling with health, and CJ in particular. McCollum just looks like he's aged. Maybe similar type of conversation we're having with Conley right now. McCollum just looks like old people right now.
The Pelicans are down now, and you're right about the injuries this year for them. Brandon Ingram, one of their better players, he's out right now.
He's still down, yeah.
So they're getting closer. So 3/4 of what they feel is going to be a team, all right, 3-2. 3/4 of what Pelicans fans, if there even are any, think is going to guide them to the postseason has returned. Now, Zion Williamson in those 28 minutes last night, big people got a little tired at the end.
Yeah.
Big people hadn't played for a while. Big people sweat a lot, too. He is a menace, not only to the NBA, but to the Minnesota Timberwolves. He's had some of the best games of his life against the Minnesota Timberwolves, and he was trying to do that last night. But
Did you see the windmill dunk he had last night?
Then big people got tired.
Yeah.
But it was some channel popping last night, channel surfing from the Wild over to the Wolves and then to the Wild. But in the vein, or as a common thread here, to Monday night with the Minnesota Vikings, is last night the Timberwolves did some things they're capable of doing consistently.
Yep.
They're as good, if not better, than most in the league at certain facets, defensively speaking, and they executed them at key times last night. So it's copyright Dan Cole, however it goes, copyright Common, doing the things you're supposed to do that made you good, something like that. And that, to Monday night, it's like you sack the quarterback. You take the ball. You throw the ball well. You're good on third down. Be good on third down. It's too many things fell off Sunday night where the Lions had some things fall off, but they dominated the time of possession. That's what they do. They had the most first downs. They're number one in the NFL. For the Timberwolves, Edwards is hot, and Anthony is happy. Anthony seems very happy right now. And a lot of the threes, I didn't watch the entire game, but a lot of the threes were within the rhythm of the offense. And that's, that's how he plays. That's how all the best players play. They don't force it unless it has to be forced in the final minute of a tightly contested contest. Anthony is on a heater right now, man. But it can't be disputed. And this is with all due respect to Mike Conley. They're 2-0 since DiVincenzo entered the starting lineup.
Yeah.
And I ain't going to bang my fist down on the Formica and be like, hey, I said this into the season. No, that wasn't the case. But like one of the first interviews I had with Chris Finch out of the gate where they were starting to get a little wonky was, DiVincenzo got really good starting. Now he's coming off the bench. Not everybody does it the way Jordan Clarkson, Michael Cooper, or Lou Williams do it, or Kevin McHale back in the day. And DiVincenzo, I thought, defensively especially, had some really good moments last night, but he's gaining confidence by the second. And you can tell when you watch him off the dribble, where he's confident enough to back up, set somebody up, execute a crossover, and if he can't get to the basket, try to get a little floater to go his way. So DiVincenzo is starting to take off. And it's not a minute too late. They've won 2 in a row for DiVincenzo. 2 in a row for DiVincenzo.
And if they're going to take advantage of an injury-riddled squad in New Orleans, why don't they just go down to Orlando and do the same thing last night? I don't know how much you've been paying attention. We're LFL, of course, in the mix here on a daily basis. But
yeah, they're diseased right now.
Franz Wagner is out of the mix. Paulo Banchero, I think he's only played a handful of games this year. So that's another opportunity for a team in Orlando.
Well, Suggs.
Suggs he's kind of looking the part, though, by the way.
Yeah, unless he came back and I missed it, but I think he took an injury out recently. So now you got Cole Anthony terrorism starting, and you can win some games with Cole, but he'll also shoot you into last place.
No, you're right. He's missed a couple of games in a row now.
So they got, just when they got used to playing without Wagner and Banchero, Suggs went down. And Jalen, like you said, was having the best season he's ever had in his life. So off what you're saying here, I'm with you.
Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, though.
It's you. If you are Western Conference Final or NBA Finals or playoff worthy, then you beat teams like this.
Yes, you do.
That's just what you're supposed to do, and then you go 3 in a row for DiVincenzo.
Goga Badatse. Goga Badatse. The heralded matchup tomorrow night between Rudy and Goga. To the Minnesota Wild in the third period, it was Jake Middleton who tied it, and Matt Boldy put the team ahead for good.
Broken stick by Broberg. Then allows Zuccarello to charge it. Cross ice, a shot. They score! Oh, Matt Boldy hammers it home. And all of a sudden, early in the third, the Wild have a 5-4 lead.
And it was Johansson with an empty netter later on that made it 6-4 the final over the Blues at the X. The Wild have won 4 in a row for Hines, though, and the Wild are third in the West. They get a chance to punch Mr. McKinnon and company tomorrow night at the X. Injuries, a problem. Brock Faber left with an upper body injury last evening. Hines joined this morning, to open 9 to noon. John Hines on the show and kind of spoke of it. He's worried about it as he is with any injury. Not an update that he was either able or willing to offer thus far, but a team that's won 4 in a row, grinding through every injury. I mean, you want to speak about battle testing and this and that. It's trial by fire on a nightly basis with this team. It doesn't get easier with the Avalanche around the corner, but they get out. They batter the Blues last evening at the X.
Yep, and it was great having Coach Hines on. He had a little pep in his step with the delivery today. Just super excited with what's happening because Jonas Brodin played 33 minutes. 33 minutes. Faber went down and Brodin picked up the entire load. John Merrill, personally speaking, from what I'm being told, because I haven't watched all the Wild games the last few weeks, John Merrill never has played better. He was press box guy more than a handful of times earlier in the year with the healthy scratch. And in fact, Norda wasn't there. The last box in the box that I did is I caught a weird moment where final hour of the show after the morning skate, Merrill was being told by an assistant coach at center ice, "You're out. You're scratched tonight."
Oh no!
And I'm not one to like.
Was the sounds of hockey mic on?
I'm not one to put words in the mouths of people, but looking like I looked into his eyes and I could tell there was fire. He wasn't happy. We'll just end it. Well, you could just tell he wasn't happy when he was getting the news.
Oh yeah.
So from there to that box in the box before you went to the Army-Navy game to where we are now. And he scored the second goal last evening. That's fantastic, man. I mean, it's. I'm not going to say it's a rags to riches bit because I don't know enough about his career before that and college and all that. But he's getting an opportunity and he's capitalizing. Now, I'm going to put a picture out on Twitter here in a minute because for the first time in my 27-ish year radio career at AM 1130 KFAN or FM 100.3 KFAN, we have a guest who has scratched. Sam Farmer, a 25-year National Football League writer for the LA Times, super well accomplished, incredibly well respected, and a longtime friend to 9 to noon. He scratched because those fires, he lives in an area of what's known as La Cañada. Okay. Yeah. And I'm quite familiar with it. Played sports there a lot when I was in high school. And in high school. And it's north and west of Pasadena. So it's on the way up to the San Fernando Valley and Pacific Palisades and Malibu and all that area. He sent me a picture right now from his backyard. And he and his neighborhood are being forced to evacuate. These fires are on him, man. And it's like, the Santa Ana winds, which I shared earlier, originally were called the Santana winds, the devil's winds. They blow in from the south. Happens yearly in Southern California. And this time of the year, I remember January and February. That's when it would get super rainy when I was in high school and junior college. And that's when the winds would be a factor and the surf would be a factor at Huntington Beach or Newport or Balboa. And that's when there's a place between Newport Beach and Balboa called the Balboa Wedge. And like the wedge, when you're a knucklehead high school guy, the waves are massive. It's like, it's not Hawaii 5-0 type massive. but they're massive, which leads to what? Massive undertow. So, when I would body surf or boogie board, because I could never jump up on a surfboard, you had to be very careful. No matter how knuckleheadish or fearless you would be, body surfing the Balboa Wedge. When the Santa Ana winds would emerge, they shut the sucker down. I mean, like the greatest surfer of all surfers ever to surf, they wouldn't let you go out there because the waves were massive. They would crash down. The undertow was so bad because the next one came in more quickly because of the wind.
Yeah.
And you just could not get up for air. That's the situation with the Santa Ana winds from Southern California. Now, when I lived there, to my recollection, there never was any form of massive fire that took place during the Santa Ana winds.
And that's what I was going to ask you, and you kind of answered the question, because as you were setting this up, you talked about the Santa Ana winds come in this time of year, January, February, and then it gets rainy, and that was the key. And I was just curious how rare this really is. And I've heard about it other times of the year, but the idea of in January in particular, the weather being in a spot where this is able to emerge and manifest itself is
Big
unbelievable.
Time. Yep, it's there are a lot of annual things in a lot of different places. The swallows in Capistrano, that's a beautiful thing. But the Santa Ana winds they've never been. I don't recall them being as threatening as they are now. I mean, I've read that these winds are 100 miles per hour, and I remember stiff winds heading south on 57 to go down to the beach or head down Tijuana way. And when you're driving, if you drove a Volkswagen like I had, then that sucker, it would get wonky. I mean, it was moderate chop on 57 South or 5 South.
Was it a Beetle?
It was a convertible Volkswagen that my stepfather was nice enough to buy from my older sister for me for high school.
Awesome.
And it was like it being in a plane flying into the wind on a landing with moderate to severe chop. Well, from what I understand from talking with family members of mine and reading all these stories, is these winds are more ferocious right now than anybody can ever remember. And ever would be a long time for friends and or family members I have back there. I lived there 1979 to 93. And then San Francisco, 93 to 98, moved here full time in 98. So therefore, I was there 16 years, and I remember those Santa Ana winds. My family and my brother and some other people have been there longer than me, and they're telling me they never have been more aggressive, more violent, and more consistent than they are right now. Well, now we have a natural disaster where a fire popped up in the Pacific Palisades area, and some of these things that you see online on social media are unbelievable. Like there's this guy in Pacific Palisades who, I don't know if he refused to evacuate his place or, pride was the root of all evil. Valor was the better part of discretion. I got no idea.
Yeah.
But he gives you a 3D view from his living room. He and with whomever he lives and one or two animals can't get out. Because now the house is surrounded by flames that are 20 feet high, and he can't get out. I don't know what the outcome to that story was. I prayed for him and his group, but it's visuals like that. So Sam Farmer,
have you and I apologize.
No, we're good.
And Sam's in the thick of it.
Yep, Sam's
obviously.
a late scratch, man. He's evacuating his house right now.
No, it's absolutely awful. So I want to figure out the right way. So on a yearly basis, there are wildfires in California, and it
seems yearly. I mean, it might not be yearly, but it seems that way.
Well, no, there are annual wildfires. There are websites that, and so
probably not to this magnitude. Is what I'm saying.
The size of the fire, but I'm curious if this is more about location as well. So I mean, there's a lot of as packed as the Southland is.
Right.
There are more rural areas, of course, in the hills and such.
Yep.
So wildfires that take place out there, you got old trees and brush that are not cleared, and that creates an opportunity for fires. This is an annual thing. But where we're talking about right now, this just cannot be an area that has experienced something like this before.
Yeah, I agree, because I've never heard, I've heard Malibu being involved in maybe not fires, but if there's an earthquake, and mudslides and a lot of rain and stuff like that, Well, you got those zillion-dollar homes that are, in essence, on stilts.
Yep.
But they're strong enough to hold the houses for half a century until Mother Nature, until the environment and the elements go against you furiously, hard, and consistently. And like actor James Woods.
Oh, I saw that yesterday.
You see that? Right. So, I mean, it's like you can, somebody had binoculars or whatever, and they saw James Woods' house, which is between Palisades and Hollywood, up in flames.
I saw a video too. It's nutty with those winds to see the fire actually physically jump the PCH.
Oh,
when it physically.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, with embers and things.
Yeah.
It's just physically with that kind of width. Yep. To be able to catch on fire and continue on just completely unmitigated.
Well, PCH would be Pacific Coast Highway. And for them to see I'm really glad you said that, because Pacific Coast Highway generally is right next to the Pacific Ocean.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like the 405, but still.
Well, no, it goes from Tijuana and below San Diego all the way up to the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah.
And a lot of the drive is by the Pacific Ocean. These winds come in off the ocean. And so therefore, those getting the brunt of these fires by the ocean are getting the wind at its highest velocity.
Ugh.
So it's that perfect storm that is forcing it inland. Now, the Southland, has a lot of beach areas and a lot of elevation and things like that. But when you start to get to the Inland Empire, as it's called, you're out there by Riverside and Rubidoux and Corona. It's on the way up to Las Vegas. It hasn't gotten that far out. But I believe Sam Farmer, writer for the LA Times, who just scratched from 9 to noon for his appearance, which was supposed to be right now. And this is, it's Sam and I are about the same age. And he went to high school relatively close to where I went. And George Payton, general manager for the Denver Broncos, we all kind of went to the same conference of schools as like they would play sports and stuff like that. It was the Baseline League is what it was called.
Yep.
So therefore we know a lot of the same areas and a lot of the same areas that would have potential for things like this. And I had my friend Antoine Michael, who lives in El Segundo, big time Vikings fan. El Segundo is right by the airport, probably 12 minutes as the crow flies from SoFi Stadium, but about 25, 30 minutes given traffic, depending on what Manchester looks like. Well, he texted me yesterday wondering, if the team's talking about, because he's going to the game Monday night, are they talking about relocation? Are they talking about these fires? Are they talking about the smoke and everything? And I was there yesterday for about, 5 hours, including 9 to noon, and I hadn't heard anything. I would imagine that we'll start hearing things about the game from the teams. The Rams put out a statement yesterday that was a team-related statement. We're grieving for those who are losing their homes, and at last check, there from the last story I read this morning, there had not been any deaths. But we're talking about tens of thousands of people who are being evacuated and relocated.
Yeah,
and so with Sam, given he lives inland, probably I'd say it's about 20 miles away from Pacific Coast Highway. It's by the San Gabriel Mountains. So in the 5 years I worked at Santa Anita, covering horse racing for the Pasadena Star-News, one of the most consistent, beautiful views I had at a job in my life was working at Santa Anita Park, because you look straight ahead at the San Gabriel Mountains. But before you get to the San Gabriel Mountains, kind of like the Rocky Mountains in Colorado, you get foothills. All right. So that's where Sam lives. And the fire is creeping into the foothills of the San Gabriel Mountains in the San Gabriel Valley. Well, that means these winds, which are blowing in from the ocean, the Santa Ana winds, are changing directions, because the Santa Ana winds come from the south. That's where Santa Ana is. Again, used to be called the Santana winds, the Devil's wind, but then it was, I don't know, it was Americanized, or it was clicheized to make it Santa Ana winds, because they come in from the south. That picture he sent me from his backyard, that just, when he said respectfully, I have to scratch, I'm like, bro, respectfully, I'm going to pray for you right now. And And you're evacuating your house. Don't think about 9 to noon. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, there are beachfront homes in Malibu just in ashes right now.
I just can't stress it enough from living there 16 years. When these winds hit and they come in from the ocean and you're right on the ocean and there's a fire, that's 10 of 10. It can't be worse.
Yeah.
It could be worse if the winds did not peak out at 100 miles per hour. They peaked out at 150. Maybe it gets where it's going faster. But when I lived there, I don't recall a lot of fire activity in the San Gabriel Valley or out by Palisades or Malibu. And I'm sure it did happen. But earthquakes were the thing when I lived there. And whether it's living in Glendora or living in Pasadena, when a 6 or a 7, a 7.5 or whatever hits, and the San Andreas Fault is always involved with it because there's a shift, it's as jarring a feeling as I've ever felt in my life, because you don't know when it's going to stop. So just think turbulence, moderate or severe chop in an airplane, and then you jump around, and then all of a sudden it chills, and then you jump again. That's what those earthquakes were like. And the devastation that would transpire from those was unbelievable. I don't remember when I lived there. I'm sure wildfires and fires were a problem.
Well, I wish I knew exactly, because this is from Cal Fire.
Yeah, I'm going to send you a picture from Farmer's backyard just to give you a feel for what you're talking about right now.
Yeah, I wish I understood exactly how, because we're looking at what's happening in Pacific Palisades, Malibu, and beyond. Yep. They must be considering those almost like more than one fire, because I'm looking via Cal Fire, the history of wildfires from 87 to last year. Mm-hmm. The number of wildfires, 87, 13,476, and then they list the acres burned. Jumping ahead, for instance, 2020 looks as bad as it has ever been for multiple reasons. Wow. 2020, there were 9,600 wildfires that burned 4.3 million acres. So I'm curious what they judge. Like, is this a singular fire?
Great
is it
point.
multiple or whatever?
Great point.
But over the course of averages, from 79 to 88, when you first lived there were 3.7 million acres burned. Yeah. 89 to 98, 2.7. 99 to 2008, 6.9 million. Mm-hmm. And then from 09 to 2018, 7 million acres burned.
Right.
Via wildfire. So I don't know how they judge them, track them, and put them in statistics, but it is a yearly thing, it sounds like, in California, but right now Pacific Palisades is in trouble, man.
Well, and if you get a Google map or some type of overview map, and you look at where Palisades is located, I mean, Malibu, because of Pepperdine and actors living in Malibu and stuff, people have heard of Malibu, and probably, I don't know, I mean, people, if they vacation, say, in Santa Barbara, which is about 90 minutes, 2 hours north of Malibu.
Yeah.
Well, that's generally, if you're driving up there, that's where you stop, because it's Malibu. And you have really maybe the most beautiful college campus one ever will see, Pepperdine University, which overhangs looking at the Pacific Ocean. It's phenomenal. Biola, Bible Institute of Los Angeles, is around there. They have just Loyola Marymount is elevated. So a lot of beautiful views, but also they're in treacherous places if something like this emerges. So if you take a Google Maps overlook.
Yeah, I'm looking at it, Pacific Palisades right now.
Can you believe
State Park?
Can you believe that is the place that's part of wildfires? I mean, it's bigger. I think it's bigger than outside of Minneapolis, maybe St. Paul, put them together. It's bigger than any city in our state.
Yeah.
It's a massive, massive area with a lot of wealthy homes, but a lot of other side of the tracks homes too.
Sure.
There's just a lot of people who live there. It's not in a vast forest. It's by one. And that's what's getting devastated.
Yeah, that's pure ugliness right now.
Wow. But you want to, just in closing here.
Yeah.
And I think you'll appreciate this, and you probably have seen it too. You said the word ugliness. The I don't even know how to put this, man. I mean, like following this on Twitter, on X, and then you see a picture, you read a post, you see something about a cat getting saved, you see something about kids running out, jumping in a pool, and then the next 15 submissions that you read or see. Do we have to overly politicize everything? I mean, honestly, does it have to be this guy's talking about this when 30,000 people are getting evacuated? Shame on you. I mean, honestly, does every single thing in a person's life have to come down to your bunk, weak political agenda?
It might.
Seriously.
A lot of people are obsessed with it.
I don't care what side you're on, man. I don't care what side you're on. I'm on God's side. So therefore, when you look at it from a left or a right side, and you can read between the lines here with stuff you're saying, it's like, can you at least have a sliver of common decency to recognize that's the last thing in the world people suffering want to hear or see right now?
Yeah.
And it's their choice that they don't have to look at it, see it, or hear it. Sure, I get that part too. I understand that. But I mean, there's a time and a place for things. And some of these freaking overzealous morons who just can't hold back because they lack self-control, where they got to get their stupid tweet out there at just the right time so that they can push their agenda, even if they don't represent anybody. They have 5 followers. They just want to get their opinion out, and I happen to see it.
Got to be right. Got to be first. Got to be loud.
Why? Yeah,
It's a lifestyle of gotchas.
Okay, I got and right, and I've been dunked on. Okay, and you've been dunked on, and we've all been dunked on. Who cares? In one ear and out the other. For me, it's freaking elevator music. You can do it all day. Cancel me all you want. I don't care. But there's a time and a place to recognize this is the wrong thing to do in the middle of one of the worst fires in the history of the United States of America. And people will be hurt by it.
What are those mountains just outside of that area? You're dead on with it.
San Gabriel.
That is San Gabriel right there? I'm just trying to picture. I mean, they're just sitting there in a freaking...
I don't know what they're called. It's the Malibu area.
It's just a funnel, man. Like, that wind's not going to stop.
As you head east to the Inland Empire, well, that's where it gets really flat, and that's where it gets really deserty. But as you head north of Pacific Coast Highway to Santa Barbara and then Bakersfield and all the way up, I mean, you got a lot of brush. You know, where I went to high school was right by an area called Big Bear Mountain, and San Gabriel Valley. Well, that's a lot of foliage and a lot of forestry and a lot of trees and a lot of stuff like that. I've seen some of the best concerts I've ever seen in my life at the Greek Theater, which is a wooded area where you drive up to it. Griffith Park Observatory is the area that it's called. That's not far from where this is taking place right now. And if Sam Farmer's evacuating his house in La Cañada, that area, which is 15 minutes from Pasadena and about 30 minutes from where these fires originated, those winds are bad, and there are people who are in peril. But you know what? Go ahead and sit back on the tweet machine and bitch about somebody not doing it exactly the way you think it should be done, because that's the perfect time right now when people are evacuating to do that. You know what, man? We'll be right back.